Hi, I'm Tim Pollard from Car Magazine. I'm here in Detroit. We've got the GM World HQ, the Rensen there behind me, and over here we've got the North American International Auto Show 2010. So come and join me, Gavin Green and Johnny Smith inside, and we'll see what's going on in Detroit this year. One of the most controversial cars of the show is this. It's the Chrysler badged Lancia Delta. Now it's got a different nose on the front there. Some hubcaps are a bit different as well. But to be honest, we're not sure this is the solution that Chrysler needs right now. They need deeper surgery than this.
One of the four. It's up there. It certainly is in the top 10.
So here's the new Audi e-tron. It's a more compact electric sports car, and here's one of its designers, the head exterior designer, Steve Lewis, who's a Brit. Steve, tell us a bit about this car and what you're aiming to do with it.
Well, basically the e-tron, as we call it again, is an evolution of the first car you've seen in Frankfurt and in LA. And what we'd like to show with this car is a more affordable electric car for the everyman, let's say. I think that the first car we showed was a little bit out of reach of most people's pockets, and so we'd like to give a few ideas of styling cues, what we're going to do in the future with our sports cars.
And which of those styling cues should we be looking at, Steve? What can we see on here which might influence future TTs on R4, say?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's very obvious there's a lot of muscles going on in the car. The front end is very aggressive. You see a strong evolution in the front grille of the car, and also important is the front and rear lighting that shows the way Audi's moving as well.
Brilliant. Okay, so we're sitting in a Ford F-150 at the Detroit Auto Show. Joining me are Gavin Green and Johnny Smith in the back there, both writers for Car. So, Gavin, tell me about your Detroit show. What's been the sort of the real theme for you this year?
Well, look, to be honest, it's not been a great Detroit show. The Detroit Motor Show in the past has been full of incredibly brave and innovative concept cars, mostly coming from Chrysler. This year, we have no new concepts from the American Big Three at all. We also have an industry that in the last year, 2 of the 3 American car makers went bankrupt, so they're clearly a bit short of cash. And we've also seen the major General Motors cars here being Korean-developed Chevrolet, and of course the Vauxhall Insignia, which is being rebadged as a Buick Regal. So GM's major 2 new cars here have been a Korean car and a European car. You look at Ford, the major launch here has been the Ford Focus, again developed in Europe. If you go into the Chrysler stand, we see a mixture of Fiats, Ferraris, an oddball Chrysler badged Lancia, and a lot of very pretty girls, but nothing in the way of new Chrysler. So I think this is a Detroit show where the US Big Three are taking stock of the situation, they're rebuilding, a little bit of the confidence is returning, but this has not got the energy and the innovation of previous Detroit Motor shows.
So, Johnny, over to you. Tell me about the sort of the real highlights for you. What's caught your eye at Detroit 2010?
Well, I reckon probably my favourite is a concept car, so it might not actually become reality, hopefully it will, but it was the GMC Nitro, which is over there somewhere. And the reason for that is because GMC, as you know, has a history of building big, brash trucks, and I think they've realised that they've got to wean themselves off that, not before time, and they've built something with a lot of space with a really small wheelbase. It's based on a European car, and it's based on a Vauxhall Astra platform. It's got a 1.4 turbo engine, but it looks, crucially, it looks American, and that's what I think is important. If they are going to downsize America successfully, I don't want them to just take European style and live with it. It'd be nice to see, next year when we come here, to see some American style coming back, albeit in miniaturised form. And I think that car proves that it is a possibility.
That's an interesting idea, John. I mean, do you think in the 2011 show, Gavin, when we come back to Detroit, let's do a bit of crystal ball gazing. What do you think we'll be seeing there? It's only, I mean, GM, it's 140 odd days since they actually emerged from bankruptcy, so they've not had much time. Given a year's time, what will we see?
I think we'll see a much more confident GM, and I don't share the pessimism about GM. I think GM have clearly had a very bad year, and as you rightly say, excuse us while the train runs overhead here at Cobo Hall. But GM's rebuilding themselves. But GM have got some very good strengths. They're a very global company. They've been very strong and clever in China, like Volkswagen. They're strong in Brazil. They've been very clever with the way they've used the Koreans, the ex-Daewoo. So I think GM have got the global footprint. I think they're reasonably well positioned to prosper. Chrysler, who knows? I mean, there is.
Chrysler's not looking good.
No, and it's not. And we've got no indication here of where Chrysler were going, because when Fiat took over, the cupboard was bare. There was nothing in the new development cupboard, and we've got no hint here of what Fiat are going to do with it. I guess Fiat have got an idea themselves, but also they're quite new to the brand. It will take them some time. Ford absolutely looking at global cars, which is fine, but I'm very glad they're bringing in Fiestas and Focuses, and they've confirmed they'll also bring in the next Mondeo, because these are excellent cars. European Fords are much stronger than American Ford cars. But the danger there is, if the gas price drops and Americans go back to buying bigger cars, then Ford's strategy of relying very much on European cars, could be difficult, because if Americans don't downsize, that strategy, I think, may not work.
That's an interesting point, because I was having breakfast this morning with someone who said the way that Americans consume cars is directly related to fuel prices. Yeah. In Britain, we're a bit more stubborn, I think, and we'll just stick with what we want regardless. But I mean, like we're sat in America's best-selling pickup truck, and we were saying this is the F-150, which is the small one, and it's huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
And,
I can barely see you, Johnny.
Well, yeah, I'm back here somewhere. But like, I think what's really odd is for Chrysler, the real shock for me is they decided to pick a really niche car from the Fiat's portfolio, the Lancia Delta, which is an oddball at the best of times, not a big volume seller, and really they probably should have picked something that was a little bit more normal. I mean, let's face it, the Focus is a really good, well screwed together, nimble, economical car, but it's not massively flamboyant.
No.
They've gone safe. Whereas Chrysler, they should have gone safe, and they didn't.
That's a good point. Interestingly, in the next issue of Car Magazine, the February issue, we have actually got a big piece on the Lancia Fiat Chrysler sort of plan on how they're going to solve it. And in there we talk about how they're going to have 3 new Chrysler Super Minis. It's a segment they've not been in before. We have actually seen the Fiat 500 has been electrified here, but it seems to us that's quite a sort of quick, easy shortcut, really, rather than a sort of a well thought out, proper plan. So I guess for Chrysler, answer will probably be teased out over the coming months.
But it's interesting, because one of the themes here, everyone will say, is that the downsizing of Detroit. And there's no doubt there are a lot of new B and C class cars coming out of American makers, albeit mostly engineered in Korea or Europe. However, I don't buy this idea that Americans want smaller cars. I don't think they do. What Americans want are lower gas prices. They want to pay less money for fuel. But if somebody can come up with a vehicle that can deliver sort of supersized portions of cakes but low calories, if you get the analogy, I think that's what they'd much rather have. They want big cars that are economical. They don't want little cars. And I think and I think if it so happens that people start cracking that problem, or the gas price drops, Americans will be going back to big cars. So to me that's the holy grail for the Americans, to be able to deliver low cost, good gas mileage, but still with a big package.
Now this is an interesting point, because I mean every motor show that we've been to, and we're seasoned showgoers, every show of recent years has been about economical engines, hybrids, etc., etc. And there's not really been a sort of groundbreaking advance at Detroit this year, has there? There's not been a single rule change that I've seen.
Not really. I mean, we've seen the Honda CRZ or CRZ, they call it here, talks about a hybrid that's fun to drive, but actually if you look at the weight of it and the power of it, it doesn't look like it's going to be much fun to drive.
That's very strange. It's a heavy vehicle, considering how short it is.
And not much power, so I mean...
Not as flamboyant as it should have looked.
No. I think the baby Prius concept, that's quite an interesting idea. I think it looks quite good. But you're right, there's no... And a lot of electrification here. Everyone seems to have an electric car of some sort, but there's been no news about moving that forward. So you're right, there's no technology here that I've discovered that actually makes you more confident about the future of electric cars, really.
Now, Johnny, I know you were looking around yesterday at some of the
the sort of the Americana. We sent you off to go and dig out some interesting V8s and what have you. What can you report back? Were there some interesting oddball cars here as well?
Well, what I can say is finding a decent V8 at Detroit is actually quite hard this year. The V8 really is a bit of a dinosaur. Rightly so, some people would say. I mean, over there on this same stand, you've got the new 2011 Mustang 5.0. So they've taken the V8, gone up from 4.6 to 5 litres, but they've made it more fuel efficient. They've been put in some modern technology like variable valve time and that kind of thing, and it delivers more power, better economy. And they do a V6, but don't know why you buy a V6 Mustang. It's kind of no point.
But Johnny, have you seen the promotional video to go with the 5-litre Mustang? It's all about tyre squealing and opposite locking around corners. And I think, deep down, that's what the Yanks actually want.
Absolutely.
They don't. I mean, yes, everyone's mouthing about electric cars and hybrids, but you don't see much enthusiasm when they say it. But when people look at that Mustang video of some guy opposite locking around corners, and that's what they like. And I have to say, one of the best cars I've seen is the CTS-V Cadillac, the coupe. 5.6 litre, 550 horsepower. I think Cadillac, they're not having much success in Europe or outside the States, but to my mind, Cadillac is a brand that's getting better. I think they're building some quite nice looking cars and good to drive.
CTS-V.
And what I like about it is, getting back to your point about cars that look American, there's nothing worse than when Americans try to do pastiches of European or Japanese design. But when they're confident enough to make cars that look American, and in my view that Cadillac does, it's distinctive. You may not like it, but it's distinctive. It's got a certain boldness about it that I think is appropriate for this country.
Cadillac always stood for quality, and we know for probably 20 years it hasn't really been that. And when I drove the saloon of the CTS-V, I was shocked at how well it cornered and the internal quality of it. It was really un-American in that respect, but it looked, and I drove it and I felt like I was in something genuinely yanked.
No, I agree.
Well, maybe just sort of quick fire answer round just to finish off. Gavin, car of the show?
I think it's got to be the Ford Focus because of its sheer importance to Ford and to all Ford's world markets.
Okay, Johnny?
Crikey. Do you know what? I do like the four-door Tesla. I know it's been seen before, but it's still very fresh. I think that the Model S is a pretty cool car.
And I'm going to go for the Audi e-tron, which is basically a portent of what is to come in the shape of what may be called the R4. Think of it as a mini R8 to fit probably somewhere between the R8 and the TT, an electric coupe, but it looks really good, and I think it shows that Audi are filling every which possible niche that is imaginable. So there you go.